Good morning. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pagani Design PD-1667. This watch is available from Pagani.design for $148 and you can use the discount code Reviews4K to get 10% discount off that price. So firstly, let's look at the box that the PD-1667 comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the PD-1667 comes in this matte black cardboard box which has Pagani Design and the brand emblem in gold on the lid. I like the use of two magnets which attract each other to secure the flap of the lid to the body of the box, and inside the box is well finished with Pagani Design and the brand emblem in silver, and as one would expect, the watch sits on a piece of foam inside a foam cutout panel. So although basic, the watch box does suffice in protecting the watch in shipping from any damage, and bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece, I think it's perfectly acceptable to use a cardboard watch box. One also gets this Pagani Design branded microfiber polishing cloth, and irrespective of the price point of a watch, I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth included with a watch. One also gets this plastic Pagani Design guarantee card, and on the reverse there's a space to fill in the date of purchase, the reference number of the piece which is PD-1667, and also the dealer selling the watch can stamp the warranty card. One also gets this basic owner's instruction manual which is a booklet, and it also details the terms and conditions of the 12-month international guarantee. So I think it's very reassuring to get a 12-month international guarantee with a watch in the low tier. The owner's instruction manual is basic, but it does have some diagrams and basic explanations which do suffice in explaining the various crown setting positions for setting the date complication, the time setting, and also operating the hand winding and hacking functions of the movement. So the movement used in the watch is the Seiko NH35A automatic, and this is a very useful read if you're unfamiliar with that automatic movement. Lastly, one also gets this plastic Pagani Design tag, and as you can see it has Pagani Design and the brand emblem embossed on both sides, so a nice touch to the watch. I always think it's nice to get a tag with a watch. So with regards to the specification of the piece, the PD-1667 is clearly on homage to the Omega Seamaster Professional. Very similar design and also very similar proportions to the dimensions. 42mm case. It has a 49mm lug-to-lug measurement, the thickness is 14mm, and it has a lug width of 20mm. Now the first thing I'm going to say is this is a large piece at 42mm. It does have a lot of wrist presence and heft. 190 grams, it is a very heavy piece to wear on the wrist. So if you're a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, I'm straight away going to say that this is going to be too large with too much heft and too much wrist presence for your wrist. Really, 42mm case sizes with 190 grams of heft on the bracelet are suitable for collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches respectively, so that's something to be mindful of. Just to put the heft into perspective, the weight of my Submariner date is 149 grams on the Oyster bracelet. So at 190 grams, this is significantly more heavy than a Rolex Submariner date, and it really is notable on the wrist. That 14mm thickness means it's a very tall piece which isn't going to slip underneath a business shirt cuff easily. So it has a domed sapphire crystal which is very aesthetically pleasing. The negative to the domed sapphire crystal is there is no anti-reflective coating on the underside, and if I tilt the piece at an oblique angle you can see that it is highly reflective due to the nature of that domed sapphire crystal. The light reflects and bounces around the brushed satin finish rehort underneath the crystal, and also the partially skeletonized sword hands. So it copies the same applied indices dial layout of the Omega Seamaster Professional, which is aesthetically pleasing, and the sword hands do also complement that Seamaster Classic dial layout. Good symmetry to the dial, and the date complication has a nice white date wheel with black numerals. So clearly legible despite the lack of AR coating, and I think that the textured finish to the matte blue dial really does add interest, and it does complement the matte finish of the ceramic bezel insert. So the ceramic bezel insert copies the Omega Seamaster Professional with those same font and the minute dots around the minute ticks. So very nicely executed. I think Pagani Design deserve full credit for making a very well executed ceramic bezel insert. It's the kind of quality of ceramic bezel insert one would expect to see on a mid-tier piece rather than a low-tier piece. Nice brushed satin finish to the scalloped bezel, which does copy the design of the Omega Seamaster Professional's bezel. So I like the brushed satin finish rather than having a mirror polish finish of the Seamaster. I think it's very nicely done. With regards to this 42mm case, it has a brushed satin finish to the flanks, nice mirror polishing to the tops of the lugs, which have a nice curved bevel. And really, they've done the right thing in they haven't added a fake helium escape valve. It's something I dislike about the Seamaster Professional itself, and I think that a lot of homages to the Seamaster Professional make the mistake of adding a fake helium escape valve on the left-hand flank of the case. I think it actually looks better. The case looks more symmetrical with the absence of the helium escape valve, and really this is a 100-meter water resistant piece, so it really wouldn't be appropriate to have a replica of the helium escape valve on a piece that only has 100 meters of hermetic seal. So with regards to the crown, it's a screw down coin edge finish, solid 316L grade stainless steel crown. It's signed with the Pagani Design emblem, very well executed. I want to give due credit to Pagani Design because the crown action on this watch is absolutely superb. Silky smooth thread. When one unscrews the crown and screws it back onto the crown tube, there's no problem whatsoever with the interface between the threads. The meshing is very good. It really does feel silky smooth. It's one of the best crown actions I've experienced. Nice characteristic pop of the crown. It's spring loaded, which is a characteristic of the NH35A movement. So it's easy to find the first click to set the date complication and the second click to set the time. So very nicely executed crown. The case back is a solid stainless steel screw down case back, beautifully finished, and it's engraved with a specification, and it's glazed with mineral crystal, which shows off the Seiko NH35A to good effect. Really like the finishing of the concentric brushed satin finish to the screw down exhibition case back. I think they've done a lovely job with it. Solid end links in the bracelet. Now, with regards to the bracelet, the quality is good. The brushed satin finish to the top side and underside is done to a flawless finish, mirror polish to the flanks. The only criticism I will draw to the bracelet is that it uses push pins rather than screw pins, and that's clearly a cost-cutting measure. It's a shame that they didn't use screw pins in the bracelet clasp and also the bracelet links, because that would have further enhanced the piece. But having said that, they have done a good job with the 2-button push clasp, which clearly is an homage to the Omega Seamaster clasp. Nice spring-loaded action to the 2-button pushers, beautifully engraved with Pagani Design, as you can see. And I really like the action of the 2 pushers and also the brushed satin finish to the interior of the solid milled stainless steel clasp. There's also a diver's extension link, which is very well executed in the interior. It clicks in and out of the body of the clasp, and it is done to a very satisfactory standard, so I think they deserve credit for not cutting any corners with regards to the build quality and the finishing of the 2-button push clasp. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet. I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box. Nice positive click to the clasp, very satisfying. And as you can see, I'm pleased to report that it does fit my 8-inch wrist. I can easily fit an index finger underneath the bracelet, so it will fit up to even an 8.5-inch wrist. So as I've discussed, with 42mm diameter and a rather long 49mm lug-to-lug measurement, this is a piece with wrist presence and heft on the wrist. One can really feel the heft of the piece. 190 grams is a heavy 42mm. That's often the reason why 42mm watches are often made from titanium, to give them a lighter feel on the wrist, because in 316L grade stainless steel one does notice the weight. I would say to you, if you're going to find it uncomfortable to wear a 190 gram piece, which is a heavy piece, consider wearing this piece on the rubber strap. They do also make this watch on an integrated rubber strap, and that significantly will reduce the heft to below 150 grams and therefore make the piece more comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Now, having said that, with my large 8-inch wrist, the 49mm lug-to-lug measurement does wrap around my wrist very well with the curved lug profile. It does have a large domed crystal, which is very aesthetically pleasing, but 14mm really is a tall piece to wear on the wrist. So bear that in mind. If you're thinking of buying this for a daily wear piece, it's going to be difficult to slip underneath the shirt cuff of a business shirt if you wear it as a work watch, for example. Really is the kind of watch one would wear as a weekend watch or a recreational watch when one is playing sports, rather than a daily wear piece due to the heft and also the wrist presence. 42 by 14 is very large proportions. Having said that, the 20mm bracelet does balance the 42mm head of the piece very well, and if you like the look of the Omega Seamaster Professional, this does do a good job of being an homage to it, especially with the matte blue dial and the blue ceramic bezel insert. 2-button push trigger action to the clasp, it really is done very well, and it's an absolute pleasure to operate. So I like the finishing, the build's quality, and also just the feeling of the 2-button push trigger action. Good positive click when one closes the clasp, there's no play in the links, it's a very well made bracelet and clasp. So let's do a loom test and we'll see how the loom performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, the loom on the dial and hands glows in a very aesthetically pleasing C3 lumen overtone. Now initially the loom on the sword hands and the applied indices does glow brightly, and it is continuing to glow for a reasonable length of time. The loom could be further enhanced if they upgraded it to either BGW9 Superluminova or alternatively C3 Superluminova. I do like the characteristic green tone of the C3 Luminova used, and there is a good colour match between the sword hands and the applied indices and also the loom pip. So I would describe the loom as okay. It's not exceptional, it isn't the same level of performance as Seiko Lumabrite or Rolex Chromolite as one would expect, but this is a low tier piece rather than being a high tier piece, and therefore I think it is acceptable to cut some production costs by using C3 Luminova rather than Superluminova. So there is room for improvements on the loom, but I think it is okay. Now with regards to the bezel action, it's got a light bezel action. It's much lighter than the Pagani Design PD-1667, which you might be familiar with. Now I personally prefer a heavier bezel action, more like a Seiko SKX007 or Steinhardt Ocean 1, or indeed the Pagani Design PD-1661. They have improved the bezel action on that. Light feeling to 120 click unidirectional bezel. There is very slight lateral play, but it is acceptable. One thing that isn't acceptable though is the back play. As you can see, there is half a click of back play, and this is something that I really would like to see Pagani Design improve upon, reducing the back play in the bezel. But having said that, it does align correctly. The loom pip and triangle in the ceramic bezel insert do align correctly with the 12 o'clock indices. So they have done a good job with regards to alignment, there's no issue there. The action of the bezel is satisfying in that it does have a light click, and the click is even all the way around. Those 120 clicks do have consistency, it doesn't get tighter and loose, it does feel the same all the way through the rotation. But really the only negative to it is that half a click of back play, and really that's something that needs to be improved upon. But with that said, I do think that the bezel action is acceptable. Now, with regards to the movement used in the piece, I'm sure you'll be familiar from my previous reviews with the Seiko NH35A Automatic. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. The movement benefits from hand winding and hacking, which are useful complications. The 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. With regards to stated accuracy, the NH35A has a stated accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day, and I'm pleased to report that this one is running at +6 seconds per day, which is outstanding. I really think to get an NH35A regulated to +6 seconds per day is very good. So I have to give credit to Pagani Design, they are using well-regulated Seiko NH35A movements. So lastly, I'll surmise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. The watch should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the respective price point of this watch is $148 US, but you can use the 10% discount code reviews4K. So yes, I consider it to be excellent quality. The specification is strong. It does have a very good build quality. The quality control is good. I like the ceramic bezel insert, and I also like the domed sapphire crystal. It's a good homage to the Seamaster Professional within the low tier. I think it's one of the best homages to the Seamaster Professional, and I really like the fact it doesn't have a fake helium escape valve that so many of the homages do. However, there are some cost-cutting measures, as I've discussed: the use of push pins in the bracelet rather than screw pins, and the use of pins in the clasp rather than screw pins. They are a disappointment. I think there's room for improvement on the bezel action, and there's also room for improvements with regards to the brightness of the loom. If they upgraded it to Superluminova, that would make a good enhancement. So with regards to the quality, overall I would say the quality is good, but I'm not going to say it's excellent. Really, to be excellent, it would have to have a better bezel action with less backplate, and it would have to have better performing loom. Also, it would have to have screw pins in the bracelet and clasp, but however, one has to accept some cross-cutting measures within the low tier. So overall, I would say that yes, it is excellent value, and I would say the quality is good. So I'm going to recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've liked my review of the Pagani Design PD-1667. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.